Hey guys, so wanted to go ahead and do this video, and I've actually been pretty anxious to actually doing this video for the past week, and I had a really good chance to actually do this video like probably about a couple of months ago when there was a weekly theme, or it was just really the right time for a video like this. But let's just say, at that time I really didn't actually think about this, so really I didn't have this video in mind. So I wanted to go ahead and actually do this video, and what this video is about is pretty much one of my biggest fears. And for those that may or may not know, I really don't have that many fears. I mean, compared to most people, I really don't. It's really hard for me to get scared, and I may get startled sometimes, but getting startled and scared are two completely different things. And when it comes to fears, there's a lot of different types of fears, and some people fear death, and mine is kind of, I guess you could say, similar. Now, let's just say when I was a younger kid, throughout my entire life, I've always had some sort of problem with my brain or something of some sort. When I was much younger, when I was in elementary school, going throughout middle school, I had seizures all the time. I had them for at least 4 years. I honestly don't remember how long I had them, but I had them for many years, and I remember my doctor at the time just kept on just giving me more powerful pills and making me take more of them and just higher the milligrams or whatever, and it just kept on making it worse. And I don't know whether or not that guy was trying to make a crap ton of money off of that particular medicine or something, or if it was the only stuff he knew of, or if he was just a bad doctor or something, but it just really did not help. And they put me through a scanner, and they put me through machines, they attached those things all over my body, and they did all kinds of things, and they could never figure out what triggered and what caused my seizures. And even when I told them, like, well, maybe it has to do with the fact that, let's just say during this time I had suicidal thoughts, and I would hit my head on brick walls all day just because I just really wanted it to all be over. But, I had seizures all the time, and I remember many times, like, after, a seizure would happen, shortly after I would actually wake up when I'm still just, things are a little bit fuzzy. I would look up and everyone would be like staring at me, because it would sometimes happen within the classroom, and it made it really, really rough for me, and it was not a really good thing, that happened when I was younger. And, it stopped at some point and just randomly stopped. And, for about 2 years, nothing was really wrong. And then what happened was that 2 years after the seizure stopped, I started fainting. It was just completely random. I would just randomly faint, and I remember it got to a point where when I would faint, because I fainted so often, not every day, but like sometimes a couple or a few times a week, and I would try to keep myself very close to things I could lean on or fall on, make sure I don't hit anything really hard, if I pass out. And I would just randomly faint, and most of the time it didn't happen at school, but there was a couple of times when it actually did. And this is when I was like around the time when I was like a freshman and starting high school, and maybe towards like the very end of middle school. But it was something that happened for at least a couple of years, and then once again for a year or two it just completely stopped. The fainting stopped. And then what happened after that, what I started getting was panic attacks. Now, occasionally I get panic attacks. I think within the past 6 months I might have had one, but for the most part it has stopped. I was having panic attacks on a pretty regular basis, I would say in probably 2011 and 2012, and a little bit 2013. Maybe not sure about 2011, but definitely 2012 for sure. And I was just having a lot of panic attacks, and it was really, really terrible. And right now it's kind of stopped, but also kind of slowed down. But within the last year, I've only had one, maybe two of them. And the biggest fear that I have right now is not just, these things happening and the fact that I've had so many different things happen, but because these things happen for a certain amount of time, and then they stop for a certain amount of time, and then something else comes next that's even worse. My biggest fear is what's next. And I've only talked to a couple of my friends about this, and they end up thinking the exact same thing as me. It's like, if it started with seizures, and then I was fainting, and then panic attacks, then the big question is, what's next? And the answer, unless there's something else I don't know about, is heart attacks. Now, for how rapidly these things have happened throughout my life, it really makes me scared. It really does. And it makes me extremely nervous, and it's something I really don't want to think about. But just looking back at all this stuff, and it's a huge mess. And just the idea that within a couple of years, or even if somehow the break, I stop getting panic attacks and I have, no big problems for like a good number of years, more than 2 or 4 years, then that's great. But there's a good chance that, you know, when I'm in my mid or late 20s or even early 30s, I might end up having a heart attack. And it's something you don't normally hear or see about, you know, on the news or anything. I mean, you don't see very many people having heart attacks at that young of an age, you know. And there's been a couple times throughout my life I thought to myself that, you know, there's a lot of people out there that have died very young, and I feel like I'm that type of person that might die very young. And when I think about, you know, the next thing that will happen after panic attacks being heart attacks, you know, if not then something else I don't know about, it really, really makes me scared. And I really don't want to die young. I just don't want to have a heart attack, you know. I mean, I really don't want to have it, at least not when I'm young. And, you know, I would think, it's not going to happen, or it'll happen when I probably get my 40s, but, I mean, just look. I mean, just look at everything that's happened within my past. Heart attacks for at least 4 years. I was fainting for 2, maybe close to 3 years, and then panic attacks for 2 years, and within the last year, I've only had like 1, maybe 2 of them. So it's kind of slowed down and kind of stopped. And the next thing is heart attacks, and it really makes me scared. But anyways, I think that's about it. I usually don't talk about these kind of things, and I really don't know what else to think about or say about it. But I mean, that's pretty much what I think about sometimes, and I really try not to. But it's not something you could really ignore. And yeah, so. But anyways, that's it for this video. I'm going to try to do more interesting videos like this, give you guys some of my stories and tell you guys, you know, some interesting things about me as a person and that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So thank you guys again, guys, for watching, and I'll see you guys next video.